2, 3. Previously on The Way Home.
Screen tests. My ancestor tried to put Port Haven on the map back then by bringing Hollywood to make a movie.
Mom, you're gonna travel to 1925 to meet Fern.
Oh, great job, Miss Love.
And into evening, the court.
This is crazy. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Mom, stop! It's true. Tessa, I'm your son.
Tunnels destroyed, 5 souls in, 4 out, Tessa gone. What does that mean?
5 went in, and 4 came out.
Stop! Please! Elliot! No!
It's okay. You go.
I can't, Elle. Hey, no, we grow up together. You remember that? This isn't Elliot. Come on. Elle. No, Elle.
What if I told you that the beautiful emotional ending you saw in The Way Home Season 4 was never supposed to happen? What if the peace the Landry family finally found wasn't a creative choice at all, but a forced, desperate cover-up to hide a devastating reality? When Hallmark abruptly pulled the plug on its absolute biggest masterpiece, they gave the USA media the usual corporate script. They talked about natural conclusions, perfect arcs, and orderly storytelling. But those are the lies they tell you to keep you from looking too closely at the cracks behind the scenes. The real bleeding reason this show was canceled after Season 4 has nothing to do with budgets, and it definitely has nothing to do with lower ratings. It is tied to a dark, psychological breakdown that was happening inside the writing room. A creative nightmare so toxic that continuing into a Season 5 would have completely destroyed the very actors you love. There was a secret plot line, a specific direction the studio wanted to push for the next season that crossed a dangerous emotional line, a line so heavy that the creators chose to kill their own creation rather than let it be corrupted. If you think you know why the pond closed forever, you only know what they allowed you to know. Because the truth behind the death of The Way Home is darker than any time travel mystery we ever uncovered. And what we found out will completely change how you view the entire Landry legacy. Stay with me, because once you see what was happening behind the camera, you will never look at that finale the same way again. The beautiful emotional ending you saw on your screens at the end of Season 4 was nothing but a carefully crafted illusion. To the millions of viewers watching across the United States, it felt like a breathtaking natural conclusion to a legendary family saga. The Landry women finally seemed to find a fragile sense of peace. The mystical pond seemed to settle, and the endless, painful loops of time travel appeared to come to a definitive stop. It was exactly what the network wanted you to see. A neat, heartwarming package wrapped up in a pretty bow to make you feel satisfied. But if you look closely at the pacing of those final episodes, something feels deeply unsettling. The closure was too neat, the answers came too fast, and the sudden shift from deep generational trauma to absolute peace didn't match the heavy, slow-burning mystery we had been watching for years. The truth is that happy ending was never the original plan for The Way Home. It was the emergency shield put up by the creators to protect the show from a massive behind-the-scenes crisis. Behind closed doors, the writers were facing an impossible situation where the network's demands were completely crashing against the emotional reality of the characters. The creative team realized that if they didn't force a happy ending right then and there, the story was going to be pushed into a dark, toxic direction that would ruin the show's legacy forever. They chose to give the audience a beautiful lie in Season 4, rather than letting the network force them into an ugly truth in a 5th season. But what was this massive crisis that forced them to abruptly rewrite the entire destiny of the Landry family? To understand that, we have to look past the beautiful scenery of Port Haven and look at the real damage happening behind the camera. The endless cycle of grief, loss, and trauma on screen wasn't just exhausting for the viewers. It was quietly breaking the people making the show. For 4 years, the cast and crew had to submerge themselves into the darkest depths of human emotion week after week. acting out the pain of a vanished child, the horror of watching a parent die in a repeated car crash, and the sheer desperation of trying to fix a broken past takes a massive psychological toll. In Hollywood, this is known as emotional burnout, and on the set of this intense drama, it became a heavy reality. The actors weren't just reciting lines. They were living inside a pressure cooker of constant tragedy. Behind the camera, the atmosphere grew increasingly heavy as the creative team realized that pushing these characters and these actors through another grueling year of misery was becoming completely unsustainable. This human cost is the deeply personal reason that corporate statements will never openly admit. The showrunners saw the physical and mental exhaustion in their cast's eyes and knew they had reached a dangerous breaking point. To stretch the story into a fifth season meant the writers would have to invent brand new tragedies, tear the Landry family apart yet again, and force the actors to scream and weep through another 10 episodes just to keep the network's ratings up. The creators faced a heartbreaking choice: compromise the well-being of their team for a paycheck, or protect the people who built the show by bringing the curtain down early. By choosing to end it after season 4, they made a protective, deeply empathetic sacrifice. But emotional burnout was only half the battle. An even bigger problem was brewing directly inside the script itself, creating a narrative trap that threatened to destroy the characters completely. The mystical pond was the very heartbeat of the show, but behind closed doors, it became the writer's greatest curse. In the writer's room, this was known as the pond paradox. The rules of the water were simple but brutal. You go where you need to go, not where you want to go, and you can never actually change the past. For 4 seasons, this concept created incredible suspense. But by the end of season 4, the writers hit a brick wall. They realized that the pond was no longer a tool for healing. It had become a toxic addiction for the Landry women. To keep the show moving forward into a 5th season, Kat and Alice would have to keep jumping into the water, continuously ignoring their present lives to chase ghosts. The writers were trapped in a corner. Keeping the time travel going meant turning the characters the audience loved into obsessed, unlikable people who refused to grow. This narrative trap created a massive, quiet panic behind the scenes. The studio was pushing for bigger twists and more shocking timeline shifts for season 5. But the writers knew that tracking too many timelines would completely break the logic of the story. They were staring down a path that would turn a beautiful, grounded family drama into a messy, confusing sci-fi show full of plot holes. There was even a specific storyline proposed by the network that would have completely violated the core rules of the pond, twisting the show's mythology just for a cheap shock factor. The creative team looked at the future of the script and realized that continuing would mean insulting the intelligence of their loyal USA audience. Instead of watching their masterpiece get ruined by its own concept, they chose to break the loop entirely. But this creative standoff quickly turned into a high-stakes battle against the network itself. The official cancellation notice was carefully written to sound like a peaceful agreement, but in reality, it was the end of a fierce corporate war. In the television industry, networks do not like to cancel their biggest hits while they are making money, and The Way Home was a massive success with a deeply loyal audience. Behind the scenes, the studio executives were demanding a 5th season, but they wanted it on their own terms. They wanted more episodes per year, a faster production schedule, and a heavy shift toward sensational soap opera-style drama to attract a broader audience. The network cared about algorithms, commercial slots, and maximizing profit. They viewed the Landry family saga not as art, but as a product that could be stretched out indefinitely, regardless of whether the story actually made sense anymore. This created a major standoff between the corporate executives and the creative team. The showrunners firmly refused to let their creation be watered down or turned into endless, cheap television. They knew that giving in to the network's demands would mean sacrificing the high-quality storytelling that USA viewers had fallen in love with. The studio even threatened to bring in new writers who would comply with their demands if the original creators didn't cooperate. Facing the threat of seeing their beloved project stripped of its soul, the creators made the ultimate power move. They used a specific clause in their contract to lock in the season 4 finale as the definitive end, effectively forcing the network's hand. The network tried to hide this bitter battle under the guise of a mutual decision, but it was actually a heroic sacrifice by the creators to save the show's dignity. In the end, losing the show we loved so deeply was a brutal pill to swallow, but it was the only way to save the Landry legacy. If The Way Home had been dragged out for years, it would have suffered the tragic fate of so many other great American television dramas, fading away into a repetitive, frustrating mess that fans eventually stopped watching. Instead, by stopping the clock at the absolute peak of its creative power, the creators gave us something incredibly rare in modern television: a flawless, untainted masterpiece. The sudden pain of saying goodbye to Port Haven was the ultimate price we had to pay to ensure that the story of Kat, Alice, and Dell remained pure, respected, and unbroken. This final sacrifice perfectly mirrors the deepest message of the show itself, that true healing only begins when you finally stop fighting the past and find the courage to let go. By closing the pond forever, the creators forced us to accept the present moment, proving that a definitive, beautiful ending is worth far more than an endless loop of misery. The cancellation wasn't a failure, it was a victory for high-quality storytelling. Now, when you look back at the entire 4-season journey, you don't see a show that ran out of steam, but a perfectly completed puzzle where every single piece of generational trauma was handled with love and care. The pain of the cancellation hurts right now, but it is exactly what ensures the Landry family will live on as an unforgettable legend in the hearts of fans forever.